Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask George to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abadili?
Present.
Foster?
Present.
Gilmore, present. Hearn?
Present.
Lee?
Present.
Sampu?
Present.
Tangney?
Unmute.
Angela.
Angela, unmute. There you go.
Present.
Thank you. Administrator Darcy Carley?
Present.
Staff member Kim Kavanaugh?
Present.
We're all here with a quorum, Mr. Chairman. The floor is yours.
Thank you. This is the first hearing that Angela is joining us, and she's the new commissioner. Welcome. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. for the applications of Danielle and Matthew Cialiodi, Barnstable Yacht Club, Michael P. and Jill M. Stansky, Park City Wind LLC, Bennett Daniel, Denise and Jack Junkin, John A. and Colleen J. Boselli, Stephen Kelman. The hearing will be held remotely as televised on Channel 18. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to Darcy Curley at 230 South Street, Hyannis. This meeting is being recorded by and transmitted by the Information Technology Department of the Town of Barnstable on Channel 18. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmissions, please let Channel 18 know I know. Hearing none. This evening's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisements. Please send your checks to Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measure adopted during the state of emergency, cited by the governor on March 29, 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the hearing will be televised by Channel 18. Second, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 891-9825-5413 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. Third, the public can also email the comment to darcy.curley@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Tonight, under the NOI, the applicant for the Park City Wind LLC has requested for a continuance without testimony to August the 8th, 2023. Under the continuances, the applicant for Babcock Holding LLC and the Cape Beach House LLC has also requested for a second continuance without testimony to August the 8th, 2023. The applicant for the Jeff Ingram Pensacola Cove LLC has requested for a second continuance without testimony to July the 18th, 2023. We have a long agenda tonight. Please limit your comments to our jurisdictions under the State Wetland Protection Act and local regulations. Under no new business, the first item is the annual election for the officer. I have discussed this with Louise and George, and we are willing to serve another terms. Can someone make a motion?
I'd make a motion for Tom to serve as chairman for another year, Louise as vice chairman for another year, and George as clerk for another year. I would make that motion. Second.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Sampu?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Tangney?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Hearn?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you, the three of you, for serving.
Yeah, thank you. The second item under the old new business, Barnstable Land Trust grant applications. Willow Holy Reserve Conservation Projects. The Barnstable Land Trust is seeking support from Conservation Commission on the Willow Preserve conservation projects, which includes the purchase of 9.5 acres of pond front land at 150 and 175 Willow Road in Marston's Mill. BLT is applying to the Community Preservation Committee, CPC, for funding assistance for the purchase of a 5.5 acres parcel within the overall 9.5 acres project area, proposing the acquisitions of a conservation restrictions on the property. The remaining 4 acres of land, including a small C-1939 Cape Cod style home, will also be purchased by BLT for conservation purpose. Lindsay, you want to say something first before go to Kelly?
Thank you, Tom. Congratulations for the officers being reelected. The Land Trust has come to the Community Preservation Committee meeting, and the committee approved at that meeting the letter of intent for the acquisition of this 5.5 acres in Marston's Mills. It's a partnership with the Land Trust and also the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trusts to acquire this roughly 9.5 acre parcel right on Middle Pond. There's a potential for a trail and those kinds of things. The committee moved it to full application, which we'll be hearing at our July meeting. But we do appreciate you getting us on this agenda for this land grant, as they call it, the Land Acquisition for Natural Diversity Program. And here's Kelly to give you the details on the grant and how that will move forward.
Great, thank you.
Kelly?
Hi, did you want me to share screen to share some slides with you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Oops.
While Kelly is playing around in terms of sharing the screen, I just want to disclose that, you know, I'm representing the CONCOM on the CPC committee. So
thank you for the record. My name is Kelly Grant. I am a land protection specialist with the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trusts. And for this project, I'm working with the Barnstable Land Trust on a project to purchase 9.5 acres of land at the north end of Middle Pond. This specific request is for a CPC application and a land grant application for 5.5 acres of that land. So this is the just to show you the general location of the property at the top end of Middle Pond here to get you oriented. And then this is a more specific assessor's map of the property. There's actually two parcels of land owned by the Wheeler family being purchased by the Land Trust. And it's this 5.5 acres on the eastern end of that property that is being purchased. It's a pond frontage with a pine oak wooded upland with a lot of like specimen holly trees and beech trees. So it's a beautiful piece of property that's being preserved. There's an existing garage on this property, which will either be used for conservation purposes, primarily for storage, or it may be removed as part of the project. And there's an existing driveway access onto the property to the single-family dwelling lot that is to the west, which will likely be retained with a deeded easement access. So just to show you some of the conservation values of this property, it's connected directly to the Fuller Farm owned by the Barnstable Land Trust to the south. And then it's in close proximity to the Danforth recreational areas to the north. And this obviously creates a good opportunity to create some connecting trails from the Fuller Farm. So I'll just zoom in slightly so you can see this. There's some proposed trail connections from Fuller Farm through the Wheeler property up to Wheeler Road. So they'll create some really good opportunities for additional recreational use by the public and with some water access along the pond front of Middle Pond as well. And this is obviously a potential proposed location of some trails at this point. So looking at some of the other conservation values, the Middle Pond and the shoreline are mapped as Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program Priority Habitat of Rare Species for 2 freshwater mussels and 1 rare vascular plant. And coinciding with that is the biomap rare species core habitat and aquatic core habitat, and then the biomap aquatic core buffer critical natural landscape. So it's got some really good conservation value, really good property for us to be preserving. It doesn't lie directly within the wellhead protection area, but it does have a wellhead protection area both to the south and to the northwest of the property. And obviously it's in the direct watershed for and a recharge area to Middle Pond. So great for water quality protection as well. So just to give you a couple of photos to get some like the idea of the location of the property. This is a photo looking at the property from the Fuller Farm, so looking from the open field area into the wooded area. And this is the view from approximately where a trail would be located, looking down out over Middle Pond with a possible location for pondside access there. And then this is just an example of some of the holly specimen trees that have been planted by the Wheeler family over the years. It's got some really interesting trees and BLT hopes to kind of call out and label some of those trees so that the public can enjoy and learn as they visit. So I've kept that brief for you. I'm happy to answer any questions. We appreciate your getting on the agenda at short notice. We do have a land grant application going in this week. And we are looking for a letter of support from the Conservation Commission for that land grant and the CPC application, and also authorization to the chair to sign the land grant application.
Thanks, Kelly. John?
Hi, Kelly. Couple quick questions. I assume that there is no hunting on this property. Is that correct?
No, there's not proposed to be any hunting on the property just because of obviously the close proximity to other homes. Yeah.
Secondly, there'll always be public access to it. Who will be responsible for maintaining the trails, et cetera, et cetera? Who is responsible for that on an ongoing basis?
So the property will be owned by the Barnstable Land Trust, so it'll be under their stewardship for trail maintenance. And the conservation restriction that'll be placed on the property, which would be held by the town of Barnstable, and we're proposing jointly with the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust, would be responsible for monitoring that conservation restriction, which would obviously ensure that there is public access in perpetuity.
That's great. Thank you. It looks super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise?
The photographs you showed, the last one in particular of the trees the Wheeler family had planted, it looks kind of manicured to me. Are you planning on keeping it that way or letting it go more wild except for the trail maintenance? What do you have in mind?
The photo that you saw with those specimen trees are trees that are actually located around where the house is. So it is slightly more manicured in that area. That's actually not on the parcel that's the subject of this land grant. It was just as an example of the types of specimen trees that are there. So the 5.5 acres is in a very natural condition and it will remain that way, with the exception of putting a trail through.
Thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner? None? Let me try this. Could I have a motion to approve the support of the Wheeler Holly Preserve Conservation Projects, including the grant applications, and authorize the chair to sign the support letter and the grant applications for these projects?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Hi.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney.
Aye.
That is unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Good job, you guys. Thank you.
We have 3 RDA tonight. The first one is Danielle and Matthew Soletti. Replace existing retaining wall with stone retaining wall steps to act as double retaining wall and replace second existing timber retaining wall at 429 Elliott Road, Sanderville, as shown on the assessors maps 227 parcel 109. Soletti is here. Who want to speak? Danielle or Matthew?
I will. Danielle.
Do you want to talk about your projects?
Sure. So the first part of the project is the stone steps. Now, this is actually part of an enforcement order that we had. And I supplied a design for what the steps look like. We replaced the old timbers with the stones to act as a double retaining wall because there was only the timbers holding up the house before. So we thought if we did the stone steps, it actually is a double retaining wall. And then the second part is we would like to replace the existing timber wall that we have that's in front of the deck. And we're not sure, I didn't use a material because I wasn't sure what the committee would allow. Preferably, we would like to use concrete because I think it's a safety issue and I think it would be a little bit stronger. But it's holding up the house. So if we have to do the timbers, then we have to do the timbers. But whatever the committee says that we can do, we will do.
Thank you. Any question from the commissioner?
Yeah, quickie.
Yep, John?
A quickie, just, Darcy, I know this is an RDA and it's pretty simple, but if they okay with a poured concrete wall, do you need some kind of a construction protocol with it, Darcy, or are you okay with this? It's pretty simple. Darcy, wherever you are.
I'm here. I think it's pretty simple. As far as the distance, let's see.
The only question, how high is the retaining wall? If you're talking about pouring the concrete and then you know, who's pouring it because you have to deal with the retaining wall foundation and stuff like that. So it's not as simple as, put the wood in and frame it and then just pour the concrete in. It's not that simple. So
correct. So we would have the same mason that did the stairs do the retaining wall for us. It's about maybe I would say, I don't know, roughly maybe 12 to 15 feet long, but it's only maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall, maybe.
The only question I had, Tom, was whether Darcy needs something beforehand on that, like a protocol or something. I don't know. I'm not making a big deal out of this. It's pretty simple. I think the concrete's the right answer. But Darcy, I defer to your judgment on
Yeah,
this.
I apologize. Ed was the one that went out to see this because of the enforcement, and I had him review it. So he sent his report in, and he didn't say anything.
no, he says something. He wants to have a construction protocol.
Okay.
Submitted.
That's what I was going to say. I know it's an RDA, but I think in this case, a protocol would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you
Good.
hire,
I'm glad Ed answered that.
yeah. If you hire a contractor to do it, the contractor should be preparing the construction protocol. Because for you to prepare, you may not know exactly what the contractor wants to do. Okay, so that is one of the conditions in there. The other one is that to have a silt fence 6 feet away from the retaining wall. Once you finish with it, then you can remove it. So those are two other conditions.
I do want to note that we do have a silk fence there now in place. And also Louise and Angela actually came over last week and viewed the retaining wall in question. So I don't know if they have any comments to say about it.
Well, it certainly looks like the timber retaining wall needs to get replaced. I would support this project.
Yeah.
But you, Angela,
I have not been onto the site, but all I want to mention is just the silk fence should be there. If you have it in there, that would be fine. So.
Okay. And when you say protocol, I know for the steps, for example, I supplied you with that design where it showed, the veneer and the concrete. Now, is that something, is that what you mean by protocol? Just like a kind of a plan of how we're going to go about doing this, or?
It's a step-by-step of how the contractor is proposing to do the wall for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Easy enough.
The contractor can normally do that for you. He'll just say, I'm going to bring this in and here's how I'm going to do it. And then you send that to conservation. It's not a big deal. Tom, I noticed that Ed has his hand up.
Yep. Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just again, I would say just the protocol, just a short protocol from the contractor, and silt fence about 6 feet off of the work area would be good, just so you don't get any more dirt eroding down toward the wetland.
Thanks, Ed. Any more questions from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determinations with those two conditions? The submittals of the construction protocol to be prepared by the contractor, and the installation of the silt fence 6 feet away from the retaining wall.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Nice drawing you did too, by the way. Good drawing.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
The second RDA is the Barnstable Yacht Club. Permit and maintain existing cleared area for boat storage within 100-foot buffer zones to bordering vegetated wetland at 0B Way, Barnstable, as shown in the Assessors Maps 279, parcel 061004. Lynn?
Good evening, Lynn Hamlin representing the applicant. This enforcement order was issued for clearing that was done in 2012. In 2010, I filed for the Barnstable Yacht Club an RDA to confirm wetland delineations on the property, and I included in your application both a copy of that determination and the plan that was approved showing the wetlands that were confirmed by the Conservation Commission. I also gave you a couple copies of dated Google Earth pictures that show to document when the clearing was done. It was done before the March 2012 Google Earth overshot there. Dan Oldula and I went out to the property and relocated in the field and confirmed that edge of wetland that's most proximate to this yellow area. So the yellow area is the only clearing that occurred inside the 100-foot buffer. So Dan and I went out and confirmed that most proximate wetland edge. And it's a very clear, abrupt demarcation between wetland and upland, both in our topography and the plant community. And then subsequently, Ed met me out there and he also confirmed that the wetland line is as it was located in 2010. Also in 2010, the flood zone, this section did not fall within 100-year flood zone. Since 2014, the flood zone now is in this area. There was no fill placed in that cut area in spite of what the enforcement order states. It's simply the woody vegetation was clear, and I gave you a couple pictures of that shot, both from the east and from the west. And it's pretty densely vegetated with ground cover. They're just storing, there's an old tractor there, a couple of little boat trailers, and a boat or two. So we're just looking to catch up with the permitting and the documentation of this clearing and asking for your approval.
Thank you, Lynn. I'll let Ed speak first because he did the report on this. Ed?
Well, thanks, Ken. Everything is in order with this. This is just finishing up the final condition of the enforcement order. I approve of the plan that's as it says it's been submitted, and it's just again bringing everything up to par now with the flood zone and cutting. So I'm good with it.
Thank you, Ed. John?
Quickie question, Lynn. You talking about storing motorized craft in that area or the non-motorized craft in that storage area?
Well, they're covered. When I was there in March, the boats were completely covered.
No, I'm sorry. Are they motorboats or just the sailboats?
They're motorboats.
Motorboat. I'm just wondering about fuel leakage and gas for storage. Is that a concern, Lynn, do you think?
I don't think they had any motors on them there. If you look at the pictures that I submitted to you,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just, I can't answer you definitively, but they just look like the bare boats without the motors on them.
I'm not gonna make an issue of it. I'm okay.
John, if your concern is there, whether we can ask the applicants not to do any filling in that area.
Yeah, Tom, I know that if, especially if you're storing over winterizing motor, you change oil, you change lower gear lubes and those kinds of things. And I was just concerned because that's just soft dirt. I mean, that's gonna leach into the EVW. So that was my only concern that came up. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, go ahead, Ed.
I'm sorry, not to disagree, but I thought they
Go
were all
ahead,
sailboats.
disagree, Ed. Go ahead.
I thought they were all sailboats when I was out there the last time I was out there, but that was my recollection.
It's
Well, that's why I
very,
asked if there gonna be motorboats out there.
it's very, very densely vegetated. It's impregnable to get from where the boats are to where the wetland is. It's very tight soil, very clay, loam soil. I wouldn't be worried about oil leaching into anything there.
Louise?
I'm thinking that Ed probably doesn't agree with this, but I sense that areas like this tend to creep in terms of getting larger, partly because whoever is mowing the permitted area may change from year to year in an organization like this, and maybe somebody wants to squeeze in another boat, and so they kind of, go beyond the area a bit, and it tends to grow. So I'm wondering if there should be some demarcation. I mean, if we think this is important enough to be having a hearing discussion about it, I would think we would want to have it defined for the long term.
If I could comment on that, if you look at the photographs, this is the same shape in 2023 that it was in 2012. You can't mow beyond what's there. You can't get by the woody vegetation. It is naturally outlined or marked just by the vegetation. It hasn't moved in 11 years.
Okay.
I looked at that. I'd agree, Lynn, with you on that.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. Without the fan stuff. But one thing I really want to do though is if you're doing the refilling or change oil or something like that, have some containment in there so that you don't spill anything on the area. That's all I'll be asking for. So, what do you think, Lynn? Before I pass and go to the other commissioner.
About the oil part?
Yeah.
You could just put a condition in that any oil or motor work is done outside the 100-foot buffer. I mean, that would be fine.
Yeah.
You're 80 feet away now, almost 80 feet, 78 and change. But it wouldn't be a problem if you wanted to put you also have a yacht club on the water, which is right there. So this is kind of, if you look at the whole boat yard, yacht club, holistically, this is a really insignificant piece of it.
But I would, excuse me, Lynn, but I'd have to agree with Tom. Just some kind of condition that's or ongoing agreement that said that if maintenance was to be done on motors, it would be done outside that 100-foot storage zone. That's all.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. And specific to this area.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Any other question from the commissioner? None. Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
None. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determinations subject to the refilling of the oil or change of the motor oil should not be occurring in this area? It should be 100-foot buffer.
Tom, if I can make a suggestion that any maintenance work on any motors would be done outside the area. Just general maintenance work. If I can suggest that.
That's said better.
Yep. So it would be amended as what John says. So no maintenance work within that area.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye.
Tangney,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Good luck. The third RDA of the evening is Michael P. and Jill M. Stensky. Proposed second floor reconstructions of an existing garage at 38 Great Bay Road, Osterville, as shown on the assessors map 093, parcel 015. John.
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering, representing the applicants for this project, 38 Great Bay Road on Little Island. I can bring up a plan quickly to share with you. Commissions may be familiar with this site as we somewhat recently permitted the reconstruction of the bulkhead and also a porch on top of the existing back patio. We're here today looking to do some work above the existing garage. There is a second floor of living above that existing, but they're going to be making some changes to the windows, roof, etc., roof pitches. And so the project is to take that second floor off. The slab remains, the first floor walls remain, to peel off that second floor and put a second floor back on top of it. We are there is a marsh area that wraps around to our east. But we're about almost 70 feet away from that on the landward side of the driveway from it, landward side of the house from the North Bay. We did call for a limit of work to be set up along the driveway so that there's no chance of anything spilling off of that. I think that was a recommendation of staff based on some preliminary discussions the contractor had. And with that, I'm here. Also, Ron Welch from Kendall and Welch is here if there was any questions about the project.
Thanks, John. Question from the commissioner. None. Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Tangney,
Angela?
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, everybody.
Now we have 5 NOI. Let's go through the list. The first one is Park City Wind LLC, proposed installation of 275 kilowatts submarine electric transmission cable in the Nantucket Sound and onshore duck bank system at Creekview Beach and Second Short Beach Road, Sandyville, as shown on the assessors map 206, parcel 013, and assessors map 206, parcel 044. The applicant has requested for a continuance without testimony to August the 8th. Could I have a motion to approve the continuance to August the 8th without testimony?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. The second NOI is Bennett Daniels, remove and replace in-ground pool and deck, remove and replace patio floors and amenity, and construct sheds and landscaping at 744 Seaview Avenue, Osterville, as shown on the assessors map 114, parcel 012-002. Arlene?
Good evening, Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates here for Mr. Daniel. Some of you, I think John in particular, is probably familiar with this site. The original owner, when the house was built, was a gentleman named Thafford. So the house, the driveway, septic system, and the patio were authorized under SE 32545 in 1993, and the existing pool and spa were authorized under SE 34675 in 2008. Both of those projects have certificates of compliance. The resource areas at the site are land under the Eel River estuary, a discontiguous narrow salt marsh along the shore, intertidal and supertidal beaches, and land subject to coastal storm flowage up to elevation 12. What Darcy is showing is the existing conditions plan. So that shows what's actually on the site now. The project is to replace the pool at the northwest end of the site. The existing pool is sort of oval shaped and the spa is on the water side. What the current owner would like to do is to replace it with a rectilinear shaped pool with the spa or hot tub on the road side of the construction, and to relocate the utilities that go along with the pool, the pump, and the drawdown pit back adjacent to the house at the end of the driveway. The pool fence on the water side and the yard side will be wrought iron with the largest openings between the stanchions and under the stanchions that the building code will allow. We've provided a graphic in the NOI to show you what that's like. Excuse me. On the landward end of the pool on the north side, it will be a solid fence that's more adjacent to the neighbor's house. And so the solid fence is both for privacy and noise attenuation. All of the pool work is at least 50 feet landward of the BVW adjacent to the water. The southeasterly elevated patio is the other area where major construction will be done. That area is presently turf lawn, but it's used as a patio. What's proposed there is to replace some of the turf with masonry materials and to provide an outdoor kitchen and a fire pit that'll be built into that masonry. There's also a stepping stone path that will run from the driveway to the masonry area of the patio. Although that most of that area is in the 50-foot buffer, it is elevated above the yard grade and enclosed by an existing stone retaining wall. The stone retaining wall is proposed to remain, so the chances of there being a sort of spillover into the yard is essentially non-existent. The only piece at this location that's going to go down into the backyard is the existing stone stairs that are going to be rebuilt. They've suffered some problems over time. The mitigation that's proposed for this, we've got, as I said, an increase of hardscape in the 0 to 50 of 784 square feet, almost all of which is in that south retained patio area. and an increase in the 50 to 100 of about 50 square feet. So the total mitigation required is 3,508 square feet. We've provided 3,566 square feet, which is about 58 square feet in excess of what we need. What we've tried to do is to provide most of the mitigation in fairly large blocks adjacent to the existing buffer at this site, so that it will increase the wildlife benefits here. And those large blocks, the two adjacent to the pool area, and the little area adjacent to the stone wall retaining the patio, are all lawn now. So they're all going to go to natives. The plant list is on the planting plan. And if any of those materials, if any of the commissioners believe those materials are not suitable, we're happy to work around, make whatever changes the commission might like. Darcy was good enough to let me know late this afternoon that she had been out to the site and thought there were some erosion problems. I took a quick run out there before the hearing. And indeed, there are some places that there's a lot of shade in the grass, particularly between the pool and the water. And the grass growing there, I think, has always been problematic. They've never been able to get a seed mix that works very well. This year, they've delayed overseeding, which they usually do, in anticipation of this project coming forward, because those areas are all going to be planted to woody shrubs anyway. And I suspect that the cloudbursts that we had yesterday did a number on those bare patches. Darcy also mentioned a place that looked like there were tire tracks. I'm not quite sure where she was looking, but on the water side of the retaining wall around the patio, there actually is the remains of an old wood road, which is a path that runs to an easement on a little narrow strip adjacent to this property. And my recollection, because I worked on this when the original house was built, was that that wood road looked very similar then to the way it looks now. If it's someplace else, Darcy, let me know.
Yeah,
we'll get it fixed.
It is, if you can see my cursor here.
Yeah, right there.
All right, I was standing, there was a few patio blocks or things that were raised in an old, there was a pipe that looked like there was an irrigation head that might not be working, but it looked like somebody took, it would be like the size of an ATV path that went down. I'm not saying it's an ATV, but it's clearly, it went around this, and then you could see that it had two tracks, and then it turned to lawn in this area. So, you know, you didn't notice it. But then I think this irrigation system ends up dripping in that area or flooding that area, and you have sand that's made it all down into this location. I can show you that picture. But before I do, I wanted to show you, I found the letter dating back to 2010. Actually, it was an email from you to Bruce, Daniel, that I didn't send an enforcement order, but we noticed that there had been cutting. So that was why we had the demarcation posts out there. I found two areas, especially over here, where the demarcation posts are there, and now there's no vegetation. I think that was the area that we had the sweet fern. There were a lot of sweet ferns. I remember this site very well because I went out there so many times. It's just mulch, and I got a picture of the demarcation posts. And then The other one was a demarcation post over here with mulch, and there was only a couple of shrubs in that area. But I can finish letting you talk, and then I can show you the photos that I had in case the commissioners want to see those.
Darcy, excuse me if I can jump in. There were also a few dead trees out there that I noticed in what I thought was the old mitigation area as well.
Okay.
So Darcy, before we continue, so Darcy, some of the old mitigation area is not identified on this plan, correct?
Right. I would recommend that we have the prior mitigation posts. They should have been shown on the plan because it's a little confusing. I can't compare where those are in this landscaping plan, and that would be double dipping if they were saying that was now going to be mitigated. This was the this is the area. So here's the demarcation post. The pool would have been, in the walkway would be way over here. So this is all bare. And I remember that being sweet fern at the time. Let's see. And this is I think up here, the beginning part of the existing wall. The broken irrigation head would be here, and this is all eroding coming down the bank here. So on the plan that let's see if I can find it. I pulled up the plan that we all agreed upon back in 2009. And this was the area that we were going to have the demarcation where these black dots are. And it came up right up against the wall. So there shouldn't be, I don't think that's the road area that you're talking about, but there should be, we need to get that stabilized and nobody going down that way. It's almost like there's going around, hugging the wall, and then it almost looks like you could get another path down in this area. So we need to talk more about that.
So if you go back to the wetland permit plan, Darcy,
Okay.
I think you'll see the line that's identified as a brush line, which, so there's
brush line right here.
Brush line.
Yeah.
Not around the curve, but it goes straight down to the wall. That's the line where the wooden bollards are that you see out in the field. And that is the line that people think was supposed to be the mitigation. There are pictures of those bollards in the wall, in the ground before the COC was issued. So I think
I would have shared some of those, but with the laser fiche, with them being black and white, you can't even see
they're
them,
hard.
So.
So I think the issue that you're talking about is there's a path that runs along that retaining wall that's maybe 3.5 feet wide, that they use both for access from the patio to the backyard and for maintenance purposes. So if that's a bone of contention, we'll certainly deal with it. The irrigation head, I will call the client first thing tomorrow morning and we'll get that taken care of. And we can certainly try and do an overlay plan for you to show where I think the buffer, what the agreed upon buffer was from that old sketch plan, that I have a colored up copy. I think you probably do too. Versus this, I think you'll find that they're very close, except perhaps for the little path around the wall.
So I would be all right if, I know you want to use these steps, so it would make sense to have a path from the bottom of the steps going out. My problem is on this side, too wide of something. They're driving down here with something and going out that way. So this has to be closed off somehow. And then I'm not really sure what we're saying about the posts that I took a picture of over in in, where is it? It would have been right over here. Are you saying that it shouldn't be planted on the other side of those wooden posts that I had the picture of?
Yeah, that buffer line broke, I believe, at the path to the pier. But I will check that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we probably need a revised plan to show the previous mitigation area and have a better clarification in terms of what is being as a previous mitigation area and what is the proposed mitigation area, and then the erosion area that Darcy is talking about, and take a look and see what other things that you might want to change in that area. Are you all set with your presentation? Can I go to the commission?
Yes. Yeah.
Louise?
Talking about erosion, when Angela and I were there, if you raise that image up a little bit, Darcy, can you do that?
I'm sorry, you want me to do, which way on the plan? You want me to, you
raise
want
it,
to,
raise
at the
it
lower
up
part?
so
Yep.
we can see more of the bottom.
Yep.
Okay, at the bottom of that so-called patio area, there was also erosion going down that portion of the patio.
That's what I showed the picture of. I saw that was where I took the picture for the bottom looking up this hill. So if this is what you're talking about, that's what I was
think maybe it was back a little more even.
And then there was a second area over here. So you think there's some over here?
Well, not quite that far. I sort of interpreted your comments having to do with more sort of toward the water, but it's all around that area, including the part that is shown on the screen as lower, where your arrow is. It just goes down the bank.
Yep, that's what I agree. That's where it is.
Okay.
All right.
That whole area is supposed to be planted with woody shrubs in the mitigation plan. So that would help to deter whatever problem is going on in that area now. But I will check with the owner about that.
Darcy, if some erosion is already occurring, do you need any silk fence or something to prevent any more erosions in that area?
It might be a good idea. I think we got to get the irrigation thing addressed. It might be good if we meet out there, Arlene, with the mitigation plan, and
sure.
After you sort this out, the proposed mitigation plan and the one that I had on the screen that we agreed upon, and
okay. I'll call you tomorrow and we can make an appointment.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
I visited this site. I went there today, and in general, I don't have a problem with the renovations related to the pool on that side of the property. However, that entire patio, which is on what is termed a lawn patio, is literally a lawn, which is, a lawn which is sort of jacked up behind a retaining wall. And we have any number of lawns and properties where we are protecting the 0 to 50 zone, and that is within the zero, they're within the 0 to 50 and there's a retaining wall. And I thought, what a clever thing to call it a lawn patio. And I think, wait a minute, that's a lawn. And yeah, there's a little trail going through it, but it's like a lawn. And so I have major heartburn over that entire hardscaping of that lawn. And I have in the past, and I will do it now, we have a bylaw. It says, to the extent feasible and practical, work should be avoided within the 50-foot buffer. Therefore, the granting of a waiver and acceptance of mitigation for work performed within the 50-foot buffer should be considered only under exceptional limited circumstances, unquote. And I feel like there's a creep here. It's like, oh, we'll call it a lawn patio. And then it becomes hardcore, a hardscape, which is what's being proposed. And I have real problem with that. But the pool part, and there's a shed that's on the same side as that patio, almost just outside, just, what is it, 90 feet away. I don't have a problem with that. But that patio, I have a real problem approving that myself.
Thanks, Bill. Pete? Pete?
Had to unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have much of a 50-foot existing buffer here. And I completely agree with Bill. We don't got much of a 50-foot buffer, and then we're being offered, in exchange for putting hardscape in the 0 to 50, we're getting something on the sides, but we still don't have a very good buffer even after this building within ours, the hardscape within our 0 to 50. I completely agree with Bill.
Thanks, Pete. John?
Yeah, Arlene, unlike most of your projects that you usually stake very well, I had a lot of problem today walking it, finding what those stakes, a lot of the stakes were marked MP or something like that. I guess that was what, additional mitigation plantings, or I had trouble following the stakes. So it would really help me. I see this kind of going on a continuance, I hope, but what I see is clear demarcation of pre-existing mitigation areas and those marks off with what's being added for the mitigation area. I certainly agree, Bill and I have discussed this many times. I agree that, adding additional hardscape in the 0 to 50 is something we really do not want to do, do not like to do. On the other hand, Bill, if I can be convinced that what we're gaining from additional mitigation in an area that sorely needs additional mitigation offsets that, I would be in support of it. But I'm just, what I saw today and when I see in the plans, I guess I'm a little confused, Arlene, and I could use some better explanation or delineation when we go back out there. So that would really help me. And by the way, I did see there were a bunch of pavers that were pulled off, and I saw a white pipe sticking out the ground and those kinds of things, which Darcy brought up that you're going to clarify.
Yeah, I was surprised when I went out there this afternoon too, John. It looked as though the mitigation area adjacent to the south patio had been pulled out. So we can get that remarked.
Thanks, Arlene.
Yep.
Thank you. Bill, your hand is still up. You want to say something?
Yes, you have to respond to John, and that is
Go for it, Aaron.
I get that, they can create some plantings, mitigate for that lost section of lawn. And yet this is a fairly, I assume you were there, John, it's a fairly substantial section of grass that they want to make hardscape. That then becomes, if you will, grandfathered. It's grandfathered. Gee, now why don't we bump out the house and you end up with an addition? I mean, it's that kind of creep thing that really creeps me out. I just think that, you set that precedent and you're creating more and more hardscape taken up. And I understand that you can have some plantings over there, but
Okay, let me respond to that. If I could get 4 times as much of additional plantings in the appropriate area of the appropriate plants from a mitigation point of view as they're asking for, especially in this area where there is already this elevated area, I think that's a win-win from an environmental point of view. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not worried about creep as much as you would be, because now I'm going to get 4 times as much in marked mitigation areas. And again, Bill, I'm not disagreeing with you conceptually. Well, maybe I am disagreeing with you conceptually, but that's what I really didn't see out there today. That was my confusion when I walked that project for quite a long time today. And that's what I think Arlene hopefully will clear up before the next hearing.
But if I have to come back at you, John, and that is that you end up having grass. And yeah, now the grass is becoming bushes because they're doing planting, but the grass is providing some function in terms of filtering. And so I don't see that this 4 times necessarily, is complete mitigation, because otherwise, I mean, I guess you're running counter to our own ordinance, which says to the extent feasible and practical, work should be avoided within the 50-foot buffer.
Except that ordinance specifically allows for a variance granted where we will get 4 times as much mitigation as increase in the 0 to 50. And I'm not saying in all cases that's a good trade-off. I'm saying in some cases that's a good trade-off that we ought to consider. That's just my view, Bill. That's all.
Okay, you know mine.
Yeah, I do.
One thing I just want to mention that, this is it this morning or yesterday? There's a detailed breakdown in terms of the mitigation required and provided calculations. I think that was yesterday that was sent out. So in terms of the mitigations provided in the 50 to between the 0 to 50s, you should take a look at that. And right now, according to this table, the mitigation required for the south patio area is about 3,080, but the mitigation provided between the 0 to 50 is only about 2,000. So the mitigation is more outside between the 50 and 100 rather than 0 to 50. So
that's a valid point.
Correct. So that's something that, Arlene should look at on the revised plan wise, because otherwise, we're taking up more between 0 to 50 and just mitigate outside of it. That's not right.
And that's what was unclear to me, Tom, as I said before. It was unclear walking the property and looking at the plan as to where the old was, where the new one is going.
Right.
I have to, if I might, Tom, I was interrupted by John the last time, and
I apologize.
You interrupted me, and
I apologize.
There is in the Bible, it says under exceptional, limited circumstances. And if that is indeed our ordinance, then your idea that as long as you've got room to put in a 4 to 1, good to go. That's disregarding under exceptional limited circumstances. I think we need to try to maintain that 0 to 50. Anyway, enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me, Tom.
Darcy?
Yeah. This is a question, and it might be for Arlene, but so I'm just want to make sure in the area for the new patio that we were talking about at the bottom of this plan, were you trying to say that because it's a grass area and it's raised and it has a wall around it, you were trying to state that that's not new hardscape, that this was replacing?
No.
Were you trying to swap this out, or are we getting like the 4 times in the 50-foot, 4 times the mitigation for this new patio that you're putting in where it's grassy area?
No, I wasn't saying that that it shouldn't be counted as grass now. It should be. The problem is that because it's elevated and retained, it doesn't have any communication with the adjacent vegetated area and the existing woody buffer that's in the 50. So it doesn't function the way the lawn in below the house does, where the walkout is. That lawn communicates with the buffer area. It's a similar elevation. It has similar hydrology. The area where the patio is going is essentially artificial now. And although it is grass, it is subject clearly to irrigation, for which we apparently have a problem, and fertilizer and herbicide and all of those other things. Bill may not like the fact that it's a large portion of it will be hardscape, but there are joints in this to allow for percolation of surface water, and it is going to have woody plants around the edges of it, and it won't be fertilized or have herbicide put on it. And it is very close to the end of Eel River. So I think that this is, I don't know about the word exceptional, but unusual situation for this particular piece. But we can certainly look at the potential to move more of the mitigation plantings into the 50. There's no place to put it between the wetland and the footpath that goes around that wall, because the rest of that is already all woody buffer. But perhaps we can skin off a little bit more of the yard lawn area to move some of that around or make the buffer a little wider.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were still stating that we needed to have mitigation for that. It wasn't, you were saying that it was already acting as a patio. It was,
No.
all right. It was just,
It
like what
needs
John was
mitigation.
saying, that it would, sometimes it makes sense. Okay.
But it looks like I'm headed for a request for a continuance.
Yes. The other things too, take a look because of those comments. I think see whether you can minimize the area of the proposed patio area. I mean, I understand that, yeah, you want to have an outside kitchens, the fire pit and stuff like that. So if you can minimize some of it, the area wise, that would help your case, I guess. Louise?
I just am thinking about, Arlene, your point about communication between parts of the property and the resource area. And I agree that the proposed patio area communicates with the resource area differently than the area of lawn lower down on the other side of the retaining wall. But that area receives moisture, receives water, and that water has to go someplace, and it must go downward, I would imagine. And at some point, it is going to be able to transport stuff into the resource area. So I don't think of it as being isolated from the resource area at all. So I think it's going to be a very different situation if you've got impervious material there. So just that.
So Arlene, before I go to the public comments, when do you think that you want to have the continuance to? 25th or 18th?
We probably need to go one meeting beyond that, Tom.
So that would be August the 1st?
Sounds good.
10 or 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
None? Could I have a motion to continue these applications to August the 1st? If you can, Arlene, if you can provide the revised plan ahead of time so that we can kind of take a look at it, go out to the site to look at the plan and see how they lay out.
Also, Tom, if she could restake it, that would be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need the waiver continuance form too, please.
Yes.
We had straightened out the last time that if I had permission to give you a continuance and we're here at the meeting setting the date, that was enough. I thought that's
if we're going past the 21, we're supposed to make sure it's still in writing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're going past the 21 days. So
to be honest with you, I don't either, but I have permission. You have that permission slip in the application for me to waive the time on behalf of the client, and I'm doing so.
I think if we're
Let-
going past 21 days, you're supposed to
We-
submit the form.
Okay, let's not get hung up on that. We'll talk about it tomorrow when I call you.
Okay. So I make the motions. Anyone second?
Second,
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Thagney.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next NOI is Denise and Jack Junkins. Remove existing pole tents and build proposed additions and porch on single-family dwelling and a proposed shed in driveway at 62 Autumn Drive, Centerville, as shown on the assessors map 168 parcel 052. And this is only applying for the local permits. Dan.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Lee, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping the Threcklands out with a modest proposal. They had applied in 2004 for a pole barn and got permission to put it in. What that is basically like a little hoop house structure, and they'd like a little bit more substantial structure. This site predates the Wetlands Protection Act. It's 1975. The plot plan was done versus 78 code for the wetlands. There's been a long-standing driveway down there. Darcy did ask about it, and we looked. We've got that driveway has been there since at least, well, I think it's original equipment because there's a drive under house, and that's how you get into it. But the oldest photos are 89 that you have on the website, and it's clearly there then, along with the other driveway. So in 04, there was permission for a pole shed there. What they'd really like to do is replace it with a nice Pine Harbor wood product shed, a little more storage. You may have been out to the site. They had some stuff in the basement they're trying to store, and there's some stuff outside. So they really could use a little bit larger area. We put it almost entirely within the driveway. We know that we don't like to have things close to the wetlands. So it's extremely, well, let me share my screen.
Yeah, please.
So here's screen 2. Here's the site, and sometimes, or just to show, this is a 96 where the driveway was there as well, GIS map. So it's been there a long time. Here's the little pole shed. There was also a pod, I believe, in the driveway, and they're in the process, like I say, of cleaning that up and getting stuff proposed. So here's the hardscape is colored in, so you can see it. The pole barn or tent, however you'd want to call it, is in lighter font, and the proposed one is dark, almost identical footprint. I believe we had a note on there to put the roof into dry wells. Darcy wanted us to revise a plan to show those dry wells, so we did the other day submit that. Tucked it within the work limit line, just downgrading to the driveway. We're removing a couple of horseshoe pits and proposing 450 square foot of mitigation, pulling back from the existing fence, and we've marked it with a new proposed fence. That was another request to demarcate that in perpetuity along there. A couple of small additions. Again, this is a very modest home. This is the front of the house here. It's not a 2-level. They really could use a little bit more space, and so just a modest bump out here in the front with a porch. And we're going to tie that into a roof dry well that's out front. That's well past the 50, but it is between the 50 and the 100. Again, according to your calculations, we look carefully at the 0 to 50. We're actually going existing to proposed is going down by 132 square foot within the 50. So we thought that was pretty good. And then you do multiply by 3 outside of the 50 to 100. So when you multiply it out, we need about 450 square foot required and provided of mitigation. So we did bring this in as a notice of intent on Darcy's request because we're working close and you like to be able to condition the plantings and so forth. But it's within an existing driveway, pulling up hardscape, so the 50 net is getting better. I'd point out the town has an extensive drainage system with a bubbler that's closer than our shed to the little wetland. It is only a seasonal ponding, and they did a good job. There's a lot of subsurface drainage, so it's not like the bubbler goes every storm, but overflows into this low area. but it's not a state wetland. It's just a very small item, and but well protected under your conservation commission guidelines, if not the state. And we feel we've got a better product for it. Again, the hardscape is going down within the 50, and you're getting a 450 square foot of mitigation. So I think it's a win-win. We'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Bill.
I do not have any, conceptual problems. You're putting a shed in the same place where that big tent thing is, and it's on a gravel drive as well. And so I'm like, yeah, well, okay, whatever. But I do wonder about the mitigation calculation. Just looking at the plan, when you look at the size of the shed and you look at the size of the remove existing pole tent on the plan, the shed looks bigger. And then you have 2 horseshoe pits. And so that's within the 50, the 0 to 50. And I'm like going, how does that become minus 132? And I may be wrong. Maybe something else is going on here. But it seems like all you're doing is taking down a tent, putting up a shed, and removing 2 horseshoe pits, and you end up, and the shed being bigger than the hoop tent, and you have two horseshoe pits. And if it's just the horseshoe pits, even that's like 60 square feet for a horseshoe pit, which is like, that's like a, that seems like a giant horseshoe pit. I mean, I played horseshoes. It's like, that seems like a very big area. And then
I asked my guy about that too. He says, well, I says, why are we removing those horseshoe pits? He says, well, it's hardscape. There's the iron pins and the big surround on them and everything, and it's pretty close to the wetland. So and they doesn't look like they're being used anymore. So let's get rid of them. But don't forget that shed and everything is on top of pavement. It's not even gravel. It's hard ass, completely impervious pavement. And you can see here that there's a little bit of the existing pole shed hanging out over the edge of asphalt, and a little bit of the proposed shed hanging out over the asphalt. So it's about a wash there. So they're really the only net savings we're getting is from the horseshoe pits. But take it or leave it. We figured it was a little bit of a benefit, and that's
so the horseshoe pit. You're talking like 60 square feet per horseshoe pit. That's like 6 by 10. I mean, to me,
they're you can see them in the aerial. They're big, and I don't know. Are they? It's a gravelly mix of clay and
But it's sand. It's usually a sand. You got a pole, you got a sand. You may have a little frame around it, but it seems like to take 132 feet off, it seems like a lot. And so that's one point. And then secondly, you have in the 50 to 100, 325 square feet new hardscape. And this is a question I'm trying to understand. Is that 325 square feet literally the size of that proposed addition and proposed porch?
Yeah, because between the 50 and the 100, that's the net increase, except for the little front step there and perhaps a little bit of walkway. But we always do it very carefully. You overlay it, you just do the new hardscape. We do existing and a proposed, and the difference between those two is the net.
So that's 325 for that little construction on the side of the house.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a small house. I mean, we're talking.
I'm good with that. I just wonder about the horseshoe pit and whether or not you're getting whether 132 square feet is sufficient. I don't know. It just seems like
they're each 70. Yeah, they're each 60, 70 square feet each is what
60 square feet each.
Again, they're supposed to be clay, I think, officially. So that's quite impervious. That's the legal substance you use is clay. I don't know whether they're clay or not, but.
And are you doing anything with it when you remove them?
Oh yeah, we'll just put it. Well, it's a very, it's a Cape Cod lawn, so we'll just we'll go back to the, what it is around that area. It's a very natural Cape Cod-y lawn. And then there'll be a firm fence on the mitigation and a bunch of plants. It's Might not even be a wetland if the town wasn't running all that water in there, you know.
Thank you.
Dan, we have received a comment letter from the neighbor at 74 Autumn Drive concerning about some surface water going to his lot. Is that from your house or is it from the drainage that get into his area?
So 74 is the low lot beside us, it looks like, 74 Autumn.
Right.
Yeah, and this is 96. This is before they put the drainage system in there. And it looks to me, there's a lot of road running in here. It looks like it ran into an old ditch onto his property back in the day. I don't think it's built on next door, is it? So it's probably a vacant lot, and that's been a little, you know, I wouldn't say it's a vernal pool, but you know, it's just a little low area. It was dry when we went out there this spring. So I don't think it would qualify as a vernal pool, but it's just wet enough to be a wetland.
I don't know whether there is house or it says is the owner. He is the owner of the 74 Autumn Drive.
Yeah. Well, I would be concerned about water running in there if I were him too. But what I could assure him is that after we're done with this product, less water will be running in from our lot than is now. But again, we have a major drainage easement on the east side of our property. The town of Barnstable installed this drainage system right next to his land. It takes the whole Autumn Drive, puts it into a set of basins. Nice big shallow leach trench, overflow leach trench, and then there's a bubbler that would, if all this fills up during a big storm, it would run into that area. But it's by a valid easement, so there's not much we can do about that. And then, you know, it is what it is. It looks to me like the water always ran in there, even before this 2000 drainage plan went in.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this?
I do.
Seeing none. Oh, okay. Oh. Ken Eubanks?
Who said I do?
I do. Ken Eubanks.
Are you at the 7? Yes, you're the one that owned that 74 Autumn Drive.
Yes. If we could put that drainage area back up, that drainage area was actually put in by Russ Ginn, and that was for him to be able to build number 62. And without that, they wouldn't have been able to build number 62. And then shortly, sometime after that, I bought the lot. So for the first 4 or 5 years owning number 74, there was no water going into my property over there. And then over the years, they've let this, would you show that map again?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with the screen. There it is.
Not this one, not what the town did. I don't think that,
like the 96 map, like this one.
yes.
This is a GIS from 1996.
Yeah, but the GIS, you know, it's my understanding that the drainage area goes with number 62. It doesn't go on my lot. It goes
The
with
town,
number 62.
that's correct, but it goes into the same water body.
It goes into the same water body, but you show it in one map as that he doesn't own it, but on the other map, not this map, the other map that you just showed, you show that as his lot lines. All right, right here, you see.
No, the drain, just to be clear, the drainage easement is on our property, which is 62, and it drains into the back of our property, which also runs onto your land. I wouldn't question that.
Right, but again, he doesn't clean this thing out. He's never cleaned it out. When Ruskin, when they made him clean it out so he could build this house, this thing was pristine. It drained.
In 1975?
Yes.
Well, that's a couple owners ago, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't matter. It goes.
Town drainage. The town is responsible for cleaning it, not us.
But okay, so the owner goes in there and he dumps his grass clippings, his leaves. He dumps everything over there. Go check it out. Will you stop moving that and leave it alone for a second? He continually, they use this as a dumping ground. Almost everybody in that neighborhood, not just this gentleman, but you go out there and look. They take their leaves, their grass clippings, any logs, anything, and they throw it in there. How do you expect it to drain? How do you expect this gentleman to take care of the shed and the little bit of water runoff that you're saying That's, anything that goes water runoff from a shed straight down onto asphalt is going to go right into that drainage area. And from that drainage area is going to go right into my property.
Yeah,
It's not,
the only thing you can do is a shallow drainage system.
Excuse me. The only thing that we can ask, Dan to do is ask the homeowner not to dump any more clipping and all that stuff into the wetland area. And then if there is any more drainage issues that relating with the town, if you're saying that this is a drainage easement from the town, that means you have to call the DPW and discuss that with them. This is outside our jurisdiction in here. So, Louise?
Well, can't we also say, don't be storing, oils and things that if they start to leak, they're going to run out from the bottom and into the wetland? We often do that with sheds, don't we?
Depending on what they use it for the shed.
Right.
What they're using for the shed for?
I do not know. It's for residential purposes. Unfortunately, they did clean out some of their basement and we'll get that cleaned up, as soon as possible. It didn't look very tidy recently because they're trying to get the pod and get the stuff cleaned up and get ready for the shed. But we could certainly make sure. And if you want to put a condition on this, that there be no outdoor storage of any household hazardous materials, we're very happy to live with that.
You mean inside the shed?
It shall be only inside the shed or only household quantities, anything like that is fine.
Okay. Pete.
Yeah, Dan, I think you said that this new woodshed is going to have its gutters into dry wells, and this is an improvement on what exists there today.
Correct, because the existing just sheds onto the ground. Now we're going to put with gutters and downspouts to a very shallow dry well system, a couple of feet, above groundwater. It's not much, but it's the best we can do.
But it's better than sheet runoff into this collection area. So
and the whole front of the house is being collected into a dry well as well. And you're pulling up lawn and putting another 450 square foot, which will absorb more water.
Right. So I see this as an improvement to the water problem that's existing there. Thank you.
Certainly, yeah, I would agree.
So can I ask another question just to clarify what everybody's describing as a wetland? Are you describing the drainage area, drainage easement as a wetland? Are you describing my lot as a wetland? It's number 7.
Well, I could answer if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. So our botanist, Paul Shea of Independent Environmental, assessed that this was not a state regulatable wetland. It's subject to the jurisdiction of the town of Barnstable, but it's what they call an isolated vegetated wetland. And what that means is that there's a plant community in there that doesn't border on a river, a pond, or anything like that. But it has a substantial plant community that's wetland species. Over the growing season, there's more hydric soils and plants that would grow in a wetland than upland. So it's technically classified under the regulations as a wetland. So it's an isolated vegetated wetland. And that goes onto our property, and it does look like it goes onto your property a little bit as well. The exact extent, I'm not positive. The only thing I would say is that, when the town did that, they did go onto your property a bit with what they call the vegetated wetland, but that was 20 years ago and wasn't us, so I wouldn't want to really speak to that.
I appreciate what you're saying and so on, but over the years, what's left in there, because it's so overgrown, that type of wetland vegetation doesn't grow because it can't get the sunlight. So that whole vegetation in there since changed since they had that, because that was open area. The map you just showed me when they did that drainage was all open, and there were a lot of open trees and so on and so forth. That isn't there today. And if you walk down in there, you're not going to see anything. So I was just wondering what you were describing as wetland so that we could try to clear this thing up, so anyway.
Yeah, it looks like it's subject to the town of Barnstable. Only because it's small enough. It doesn't contain a half-acre feet of storage that you'd need for a isolated land subject to flooding. So I think it's just a local jurisdictional matter.
It's an isolated small wetland at the back of the at the back of the parcel, it seems to be sharing within your lots too. So, any other question from the commissioner? Channel 18, any other public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to a couple of things? Number one, no more clipping, dumping into that isolated wetland area. And second, the no hazardous material be stored outside of the shed.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Agni,
Aye.
Rampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your careful consideration. Thank you.
The next NOI is John A. and Colleen J. Boselli. Vegetation management to include the removal of invasive, aggressive, and non-native plant species, including Phragmites, and replanting with native plant species at 183 Bay Street, Austin, as shown on the Assessors Map 117, Parcel 152. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. Also in the meeting with us this evening is Jeremy from Wilkinson Ecological, who is mostly put together the plans and the restoration and land management plan that we'll be presenting to you this evening. I will pull up those plans for you now. As you indicated, this project site's at 183 Bay Street, which is near the end of Bay Street here in Austinville, abutting the entrance towards North Bay. The house was built with an order of conditions not too long ago, and there's a pool and a guest house garage under construction right now that was before you probably within the last year. And I'll be back before you later this evening to discuss the pier. But this project before you is about doing some restoration work within the wetland and buffer zone to it, not in any way related to any construction activities on the project site. It is about 17,000 square feet of restoration of heavily invaded areas. And I would also note that the commission with ourselves and with Wilkinson approved a similar restoration project of the remainder of this wetland as it extends north up towards Bay Street on the abutting property. I don't believe that work has started yet. Some of the buffer work was done around the house, but I believe that that work is scheduled to be done. And so this is kind of exciting as being a continuation of a pretty big area and result in a nice undisturbed wetland and buffer zone around it. So with that, I'll let Jeremy walk you through as much more of this as you think you'd like to hear. And then we'll be here to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I can speak for a few minutes. I'll try to keep it brief. Jeremy Schaub, Wilkinson Ecological Design. As John already mentioned, our project tonight proposes management of all stateless and invasive non-native species within naturally vegetation portions of the property, just under 17,000 square feet. Great opportunity to manage all of those stateless and invasive species and restore a native plant community to the entire resource area and much of the 50-foot buffer, except of course where the existing house sits. Species include Phragmites. You can see that lighter green area on our plan is the Phragmites, as well as more upland invasive species, things like Asiatic bittersweet, English ivy, multiflora rose, privet, shrub, white poplar, and a new interesting species that ended up on the state's prohibited list, Japanese black pine. Very recently, they added that to the list. Our protocol, we would be proposing our typical removal methods for the upland invasive species, which would include herbicide treatments, as listed in the LMP in our land management plan. We would remove that vegetation and any bare soils remaining after the management. We would seed with our native grass mix, which would help to keep soils in place and start the restoration process. Phragmites, of course, follows a little bit different protocol listed in our LMP, but we would be proposing a mow and wipe technique, which we would start by mowing the dead stalks of the Phragmites, which would likely happen later on in 2024, late winter, early spring. Second mow later in the spring and use a mechanical weed wiper to apply herbicide directly onto the leaves of the Phragmites. We, of course, would be using herbicide approved for use in wetlands on all project areas. Planting, for restoration planting, we'd be proposing 104 native shrubs to cover the project area, along with a selection of native forbs. Native shrubs would include things like arrowwood, bayberry, black chokeberry, and Virginia rose. Though we've included a few limited restoration plantings within the Phragmites area, as you see on the plan. Typically, Phragmites projects don't require planting. From our experience, the existing native seed bank that's released quickly revegetates the wetlands, especially as those Phragmites roots and the biomass decay. The Commission is interested. We included some photos on page 5 of the land management plan that shows that process over a 2-year period and how fast that native seed bank can revegetate after the initial Phragmites management. So I'll keep it brief. In closing, we think our proposed action will greatly increase plant diversity on this part of the property, habitat benefit to wildlife within the project area, and a great opportunity to restore a native plant community over 17,000 square feet on this property and the combined resource on the property to the north, 209 Bay Street. I'll leave it at that and open it up to any questions the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Jeremy. This project has a DEP number SE3-6107. So it just came in today. Pete?
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask for identification. My wife thought this was a juvenile poplar, a very silvery leaf. I saw a bunch of this rather thick, about sort of getting down close to the ocean. So that seemed pretty rough. And could you explain to me, because I know other kinds of poplars are native. Tell me about white poplar.
White poplar, yes. Clonal species tends to spread not only by rhizomal root growth, but they do spread by seed as well. Massachusetts doesn't consider it a state-listed invasive species, but states like Connecticut do. Definitely spreads very aggressively. You can easily outcompete other native species. And yeah, those white poplar, they're definitely within that small grove of cedars as you work your way to the west of the property.
Okay, so let me continue, because I actually stepped outside of the pathway and looked at some of the oaks and the big cedars. You're not cutting any of the oaks that are greater, maybe none of the oaks, but certainly if you've got a diameter of 3 inches or greater, you're not cutting any of those oaks, nor any of the cedars, nor any of the taller poplars, are you?
We would no proposed cutting of any oaks or cedars, any of the native trees.
Okay.
We would propose removal of the white poplar as a non-native species to give more space for the natives.
Certainly in some areas, I could see that this white poplar was pretty rough, especially as you're getting down to the lower lower 5th or 6th of this path. One other questions I have here, and again, I think what you didn't mention, but I think you should, right alongside the house, where you go due south before you take the hard right going down the path, you have a evergreen hedge there that is completely overrun with some vines. Some of the vines look like grapes.
Jeremy, do you mind to share the screen about that?
I can bring it back.
Planting plan.
And I would sort of hope that even though grapes might be considered a native species, they are wiping out that hedge and probably should be managed. Is that something that you're also going to be doing?
Native grape can definitely be very aggressive. We typically try to manage native grape to allow other native species to grow. Otherwise, you're right, they do envelop and would shade out.
Yes. And so I certainly think that you need to also address some of those grapes that are going all over the place.
Yeah, I didn't specifically mention it. We typically always try to manage grape to a point where it doesn't outcompete other invasive species, but because it is native, it does provide habitat. We don't go for complete eradication.
Good, good, good. I have complete understanding and agreement with you. There is a ditch along the south side between this property and the golf course. Hold a second. The air conditioner's got turned on right next to me. It's got to be turned off. Turn off, please, love. Okay, bear with me. Okay, thank you, thank you. Is that ditch the property line?
I think that ditch is more so on the Wiano Club's land, and I think that their head wall was sort of replaced as part of their drainage project in the last 5 years or so. I can look on my other screen to figure out exactly, but I believe that ditch is more on their property than that.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that then. Okay, but certainly with the care of bittersweet, thinning out some of the white poplar. I did see some bittersweet down in region, but certainly underneath the larger cedars, there's the high ground as you're getting close to the bay on the south side, the high ground with some big cedars about maybe 30 yards up from the access to the dock. Those bigger trees are on higher ground, and while there is some sparse Phragmites in there, I hope you're not going to decimate the undercover there to take care of those that's very scarce Phragmites that are in there, and fairly scarce bittersweet underneath there too. There's just too much shade for these invasives to have much of a density in there. So can you specifically talk to management of areas that don't have a really aggressive growth of these invasives and or vines?
Absolutely. In areas underneath the cedar trees, especially where we have any other native vegetation, we would definitely take more of a careful approach, as we call a cut and drip method, where we use herbicide, where we literally single-handedly, if there's just 3 stalks of Phragmites in there, we literally cut and treat each stalk. So yeah, speaking of a mow and wipe technique for Phragmites, that would be used on those very dense stands of Phragmites. But yeah, I did see it has slowly started to spread out into the upland and shady areas. Those would be a much more careful technique to conserve any native vegetation that's out there right now.
Yeah, thank you, because it actually looked like a pretty good, except for very sparse invasives in there. Perhaps my one last observation and or question here is the path down there is significantly wider than 4 feet. We as a commission value the native vegetation, which you're doing a great job at really augmenting what's there. Is there any understanding that narrowing this very wide walk, this very wide grass pathway would have a very beneficial effect on the native vegetation, the habitat that it provides for our birds and other animals? Are you planning on narrowing this pathway at all?
We had not discussed that at all with the client. I think that they're newer property owners. I think that the path that's there, has a clear delineation along both sides of it. I think there's a split rail fence along the entire thing to make sure that it doesn't creep anymore. So, at this point, we had not discussed the possibility of it needing to be narrowed as a part of this.
Okay. I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Speak. For the path, I think, John, on your drawing, on the engineering drawing, if you want to show some of the dimension of the width of that path, I think that will be helpful. I've seen I saw the fence that you're just talking about right now.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's.
I can, excuse me, Tom, I can speak to that. Yeah, I was back when that whole fence had to go in. It was something that the commission reviewed. I think we had like an enforcement issue. Peter Sullivan was still with Sullivan Engineering. So many years ago, we dealt with that, and that was, we put the fencing in. They, as far as the historic location and the width of that path that is there. So that's been representative for a long time now, the way where the fence is, and the commission was okay with it.
thank you, Darcy. Any other questions from the commissioner?
Oh, I did have I have a question for Jeremy, and then just something you might want to think about for a special condition. Jeremy, can you point out what you would like, or what you would be considering as asking the commission as a ongoing condition for controlling invasives? There's a lot of times we put in a special condition for certificate of compliance ongoing for the control of the Phragmites. I guess you'd be looking for the bittersweet. But for the record, and asking the commission to approve something like that, could you just describe what you would be looking for after the 3 years? Because we would want the annual monitoring reports. But yeah, so.
Okay, I have written it into our land management plan, but we typically look for, after that 3-year period, to have invasive management. It can depend on anywhere from 3 to 5 site visits per year, depending on how many invasives are still coming back at the end of the 3-year period. That would typically be, it could be a lot of hand weeding with some very minor spot spray application, only if necessary. And that would.
Oh, okay. See, that's page 7, right? Of the
Correct.
management plan. Okay. So that, yeah, the commission would just want to take that as a special condition, what's listed in 7 under the ongoing requests. And then I would recommend we have a condition because of the location and this being a resource area. We're happy that Wilkinson is doing it because we'd want a SERP handling this. So in the future, we should have to cover this, we would want to have a special condition that says Wilkinson will be the contractor. And if they ever decided to change, we'd have to have a written request for staff to review and approve, and it would have to be a SERP. We wouldn't even consider another group unless it was a SERP. And that's certified ecological restoration practitioner, because Angela might not know what I'm saying. So
thank you.
Yep. I forget we throw this lingo around. I'm like, oh, that's right.
I think I have those. Any other question from the commissioner? So I just want to mention that those conditions that I just want to repeat what Darcy was mentioning about as the potential conditions would be like, the Wilkinson will be the cert contractor. If there is any change in terms of the cert contractor, there will be a written notifications to the conservation administrator for review and approval. And also there will be a annual report for 3 years. And there will be an ongoing invasive, allowing you to have the ongoing invasive control perpetuity, or should we say perpetuity, or after the life of the audit?
It would be, it goes into the certificate of compliance as ongoing condition. So yes, it would be perpetuity.
Right. John, is that okay? Sounds right. And Jeremy?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Could I have a motions to approve these projects subject to a written notification if there is a change in terms of the cert contractor? In this project, Wilkinson is the cert contractor, and there is annual report of 3 years and an ongoing invasive control perpetuity under the audit conditions.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Fillmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Agni,
Aye.
Van Poo.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Thank you. Chandlewick team, can we take a 5-minute break?
Sounds good.
Rose.
We'll come back at 5:20. We'll come back at 5:20, 8:25. The last NOI of this evening is Steve Coleman, Hyannis Sport Club, Inc., to increase base elevation of existing 6 tennis courts, install underground drained infiltration area under the tennis courts, install 4 new pickleball courts in the existing gravel parking lot, install new Title V septic systems, and install new parking lot at 2 Irving Avenue, Hyannis Sport, as shown in the Assessors Map 266, parcel 031. And we don't have a DEP number on this one, Hannah. So we will need, depending on how it goes from here, we will need a continuous anyway. So the floor is yours, Hannah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC. Also with me tonight is Brian Yurgation, who is our professional engineer and the designer of this plan. We're representing the Hyannis Sport Club, and I'll go over a brief list of our project objectives. The purpose of this project, just to begin, is to protect the club property from coastal flooding, which is the reason for increasing the elevation of our tennis courts. Brian has brought up the plan just now. So we have a bunch of resource areas and buffer zones associated with them. So we did bring out a color for each of them. So hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. So continuing with our list of work, the proposed objectives of the project include increasing the base elevation of the 6 existing tennis courts, which are to the left of the screen, those big areas right there that Brian's circling. We'll also be installing underground drain infiltration across multiple areas of the property that'll be filtering out the stormwater and improving the current stormwater control situation for the site. We'll also be installing 4 pickleball courts within the existing gravel parking lot area. That's where Brian's circling sort of in the center. This was approved originally under DEP file number 35544. It was originally to be additional tennis courts, but they decided to go with pickleball courts instead. It will be the exact same footprint, so it's not increasing the footprint, just in changing up the design so that they can be used to play pickleball. In addition, we will be installing a new Title V septic system to support the tennis clubhouse that will be outside of the majority of resource areas for the site as far away as possible. And that is just needed to replace the existing septic system to support the needs of the clubhouse. And finally, we will be installing a parking lot with an existing lawn area that's on the far right, being circled right now, with a connecting walkway to the pickleball courts and the tennis courts. The mitigation area will be located near that parking lot. That's all those little circles right there, where within we will be planting red cedars and inkberries. As I stated before, the purpose of this project is to improve this current stormwater control on the site, which Brian will speak more to, and increasing the elevation of the tennis courts so that they are less prone to coastal flooding events. This base elevation, I believe, will be increased by 3 feet, and that's needed to prevent the flooding and also to install the Coltech subsurface drainage system, which will be beneath the courts. That is the bulk of the proposed activities for the site. So I will turn over to Brian before we open up to the Conservation Commission to check my work, add anything else relevant before we open to questions.
Thank you. Brian?
Hi, good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Brian Yurgation, professional engineer with BSC Group. I'm here representing the applicant tonight, Hyannis Sport Club, Inc. So I guess what I'd just like to, one point of clarification. So we are proposing to increase the grades in the tennis courts, but we're going on average from elevation 5 up to elevation 10.2. So the existing grades range from 6.0 up at this corner to about 4.5 down here. So on average, we're proposing about 5 feet of fill. And all of this will be retained by a retaining wall, which is going to, I'm kind of tracing it now, around the perimeter of the courts. So that will all be retained by a retaining wall. One other thing I did want to mention, and this was a question that had come up from Darcy earlier in the week. So we just wanted to clarify that the increase in disturbance within the riverfront is a total of 5,534 square feet. And the question was asked of that, what's the breakdown of hardscape versus pervious? And I just wanted to show that area, it's 100% pervious area, because this purple or magenta line here is the 200-foot riverfront. So the areas that were not previously disturbed this is the existing edge of the court. So everything on the outside of this. And as you can see, we're actually removing impervious area within the new riverfront disturbance. So we're disturbing within there to remove impervious pavement and to put in an infiltration system. So that's clearly a good reason to disturb within that area. I wanted to just click over to our drainage plan and just wanted to show you we have a total of 4 drainage systems proposed. We have the tennis courts and pickleball courts will have a very slight grade from west to east, approximately 0.5%. And so there will be trench drains along the eastern edge that will capture stormwater runoff from this area, and we'll route it to one of 4 different systems. We have an infiltration basin at the southern extent of the site. We have a large infiltration system under the courts right here, another one under the proposed pickleball courts, and then we also have a similar infiltration system under the proposed parking area. That's the only other thing I would mention at this point is and as Hannah touched on it, is the proposed Title V septic system. This will require a variance from the Board of Health. And so we have already submitted that application. We're waiting to be heard on that. Other than that, I would turn it back to the commission and be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I'll put back on the rendered plan.
The plan that you have with all the color line for the buffers zone and stuff like that, can you send us a copy in the file, because our plan does not have color on the buffer as a record file. I want to jump in first in the sense that I look at the drainage report seems to be fine, so that's okay. And secondly, George and I went out to the site, and then when you are proposing almost a 5-foot fill with the retaining wall, and on the drawing itself, it does not show any limit of work for the retaining wall. I know your label says, yeah, these designed by others, but you need some footing for your retaining wall. So I can see that the limit of work will be at least 2 or 3 feet outside of the, tennis court boundary area. So I think you need to show that, even though you said it's designed by others, but your permitting plan should cover at least the limit of work for that.
So we do show the limit of work. That's shown on sheet C100, which is our site preparation plan, site preparation and erosion control plan. So as you can see, the straw wall is erosion control. That is also our limit of work, our proposed limit of work. The this happens to be the existing fence. And as I mentioned, the new courts are going to be in from that. It's a smaller footprint than the existing. So I'd say it's at least 6 feet off of the proposed work. Yes, we are not going to be designing the wall, but we have proposed a design on our grading plan. So we have the wall detailed, if you will, for permitting purposes.
One thing that we may be looking for is the construction protocol to be prepared by your contractor. And then we probably should have a pre-construction meetings and then to go through all that, the construction protocol detail stuff. So, Commissioner, any other questions? George.
Yeah, Tom, should we also, when they do get us, I assume that's going to be done by a structural engineer, Brian?
Yes, that would correct.
Yeah. Should we have a copy of that for our file too?
Yes, we should. Because you need an structural engineer stamp for that design.
We will definitely make sure to submit that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner?
Yes, please.
John?
I'm sorry, Tom, I tried to raise my hand. Thank you. Brian, a question on the parking lot, which is now, I think, a grass area. It's going to be, I think you got it down as a paved parking lot with a water infiltration system. Is that better than a pervious parking lot?
Yeah, yes, it is, because you can, with a pervious parking lot, you don't have a chance to capture, any sediments or anything. Everything is just discharged on the ground. So that's my feeling on that.
Where does the water, the infiltration system go to? Is it that irrigation pond next to it?
No, so this is a proposed subsurface drainage system. It's you've probably seen them, the Caltech plastic chambers.
Okay.
And they're embedded in a bed of stone, and that's designed above certain separation over the water table, and so that just recharges back into the ground.
Okay. Great, thank you, Brian.
That's more of a heavier duty for commercial type of the infiltration system.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner? Darcy, do you have any other comment?
No, thank you, Tom. I'm good.
One thing that we were thinking about asking is if you're doing the Title V in this area, whether you want to consider an IA system or not. That's just a kind of standard question for us to ask the applicant to consider. Chandler, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Let me try this. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to receipt of a construction protocol to be prepared by the contractor at least, a month before the pre-construction meetings? And we also need a copy of the structure behind the retaining wall.
We also need the DEP file number.
Yeah, and then we also need a continuance waiting for the DEP number for that too. So what kind of continuance date are you looking at? There is a July 18th or 25th.
I can reach out to DEP. It seems like they have the check number, so that's not the issue. Maybe it was vacations or something. We could aim for the next one if you have room for us on the 18th. And then if not, I'll reach out and we'll continue it again to the following hearing.
Okay. Let's continue this to the 18th with those conditions.
So you want an approval of this, Tom, but for the DEP, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So moved. Makes a difference.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Tangny.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
So Tom, this is approved, except for the continuance for the waiting DEP number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We'll
Thank
be
you,
in
everyone.
coordination for the additional plans, and if there's a delay on it, we'll be in touch with Darcy so that we can get them to you all as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We have three continuance. The first one is Backer Holdings LLC and Cape Beach House LLC. Proposed revetment connections between the existing adjacent structures and to replace stairway and platform at 11 and 27 Marshall Avenue, Hyannisport, as shown on the Assessors Map 286, parcel 026 and 025. And this is a continuance from the June 6th. And the quorum is, let's see, the quorum is everyone except George and Angela. And George has done the Moreland rule to try to join the commissions. But the applicant has requested for a second continuance without testimony to August the 8th. Could I have a motion to continue these applications without testimony to August the 8th?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster.
Aye.
Tangny.
Aye.
She
Sampu.
can't.
Aye.
She's not part of the
I'm
quorum in
sorry.
this, George.
I'm sorry about that. You're absolutely right. Sampu.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
And George is part of the quorum now, Tom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I signed the paper and it's in the file. The second continuance is Jeff Ingram, Pinquisset Cove LLC, construction of a new single-family homes, including mitigations, planting for work within the 100-foot buffer zone at 98 Pinquisset Cove South Circle, contoured as shown on the Assessors Map 005, parcel 066. And this is a continuance from June 13. And the quorum is everybody except John and Angela. And the applicant has requested for a second continuance without testimony to July the 18th. Could I have a motion to continue this application to July the 18th without testimony?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. The last continuance is John A. and Colleen J. Boselli to permit and maintain expansion of existing float at 183 Bay Street, Austinville, as shown on the Assessors Map 117, parcel 152. And this is a continuance from June 26. I think the quorum is everyone except Angela.
Right.
John.
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm representing the applicants. I can bring up my plan for you all. This is the same property that we were just before you for the wetland and buffer restoration at 183 Bay Street, abutting North Bay. There is an existing pier on the property. The narrative that was submitted referenced the original pier construction order, and staff pointed out to you that there was some subsequent filings which were not noted in that original narrative. A revised narrative was submitted with some italicized verbiage to show you what was revised, and that was including some of the additional permit file information, and that specifically was for a float that was added to that pier around 2012, which does allow for boat usage. I believe it has a 30-inch draft restriction. The narrative was also updated to let you know that we have now since been before the waterways. Staff had pointed out that back in that 2000 2012 timeframe, I can bring up an aerial, I believe. Hopefully my screen changes for you. Back in that 2012 period, there was some concern about a mooring float that was in the area of the project. And so at that time, there was some alternative configurations considered. That mooring float, as you can sort of see as we scroll through the aerials, is no longer there. Was gone as far back as at least 2015. So that was not of concern to the Waterways Committee or Harbor Master. And as I said, we did go before them, and they did not have any objections to the project. So as I scroll down, again, there's an existing 8x16 float. We're basically looking to just lengthen that. There's plenty of water out here. We're not going out any further towards the channel than the existing. We're not going out any further towards the channel than the more recently built pier just to our north, which is of a very similar configuration, shape and size. I think we believe that this pier, even as it's proposed to be modified, really conforms to the Commission's regulations, except that it's not quite, it's not located within the middle of the lot. And as you saw from our prior filing, a good reason for that is that there's this big wetland area to our north, and that kind of pushes us towards the southern corner, or I guess it did whenever it was originally built 20 or 30 years ago. And so we're just working from what is there. So I believe with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to the Commission and answer any questions they may have about this modification.
John, in this one, are you proposing to using the regulator rather than the previous owner's boat?
Yes. So this would be the new boat, and we would have no objection to a new sign with a new permit number and updating the boat.
Okay, thanks, John. John Abadidi.
Yeah, Tom, I think you covered it. We are approving the new boat there and the new sign there, and I don't think you're looking for any variances based on this, John. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. Just as you said, the only thing that we may not be in conformance with is a pier being located in the center.
Right. But that's pre-existing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question from the Commissioner? Louise?
So, John, you're saying you don't feel that this is a substantial change. So does that mean that you're not going to be going under our current regulations?
I think
John
we're already.
O'Day or John Abadili, Louise?
Hmm?
Were you asking John O'Day?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As I said, I believe we already are under because 2012, we're already under the current pier regs, so I don't think it
all right.
okay. Matters one way or the other.
If you're under them, if you're under the current ones now, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah. And he's in full compliance, which was the question I was getting at, Louise. Is he in compliance? And the answer is yes.
Right. I misunderstood. I thought that perhaps he wasn't technically, but was saying in spite of that, our regs, but
yeah, I think it's a 30-inch rule, but they have a lot of water underneath the boat.
Right. Yeah. I missed that.
Okay. Any other question from the Commissioner? 10:18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
And just to confirm, John, we did receive the email from Waterway and Harbor Master. They have no objection to that. So could I have a motion to approve this project as submitted, subjects to changing of the descriptions from the DEP sign with the new boat and the draft requirements?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Van Poo,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very
very
much, everybody. Have a nice night.
Yep. We have 10 EC Certificate of Compliance, Concept Inc., SE3-0894, Roger P. Polati, Senior, SE3-3905, Richard St. on G, SE3-4272, Lima K. and Amy E. Griffin, SE3-5909, Donald Adams, SE3-5665, Leonard Lewis, Trustees, SE3-5041, Town of Barnstable, SE3-5743, Bernardo F. and Selma C. Armachuk, SE3-5844, Robert E. and Pamela Fair, SE3-5277, David and Claire Andersons, SE3-5832. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Just a point of order, is Angela eligible to vote on this, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Healy,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Tangny,
Aye.
Sanpu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
We have two sets of minutes, June 13th and June 20th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted.
Excuse me, as the June 13th minutes were amended, correct, George?
As amended, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sanpu,
Aye.
Tangly.
Abstain.
Same order.
Motion carries.
Our next hearing at 3:00 on July the 18th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sanpu,
Aye.
Tangny.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:54.